our special board meeting to order. Tammy, let the minutes show that we do have a quorum. And I'm in something else, so I guess the only thing on the agenda is Terry.
Yes, your favorite day of the year. I know it's mine. I get to talk about money for a very long time. This year I'm going to present a little bit differently. I actually have a slideshow. I'm also currently not wearing a mask because I am more than 12 feet away from any person around me, so I'm allowed to take my mask off. Plus, I'm much more animated with it off. I mean, come on.
And I will add to that, it'd be hard to understand you if you had a
Well,
mask.
thank you. Let's just get started because I know you're excited. So, everybody always gets this part of the budget. Everybody looks at it. But actually, what are the pieces that go into this budget? So the very first page is just a summary or an overview of everything behind it. Then we talk about revenue, and then the next page is teacher salary. The next page is the operating expenses, followed by debt service. And then we have 4 pages of categorical funds, and then we end with the building fund. That's in every single budget packet that you get, and that's the order it is usually in. I won't say always, because y'all will find one that wasn't that way. So let's just dive in. Fun fact. This final budget contains more than 75 individual sections. So not only do we look at things by the fund, we look at it, we break it down into categories. Sometimes it will be curriculum. What does our curriculum budget look like? What does our maintenance repair budget look like? What are textbooks costing us? What about just all different things? And they come to me, and I have this big 4-inch binder that when people send me the pieces of the budget to make this budget, I just put them in the binder. So anytime you need to dig deeper, I have it divided out a gazillion different ways. So when you first look at this budget, you look at the front of it and you're like, oh, great. She's predicted us another loss this year. Well, yes, I have, but there's a lot going on this year. Let's not forget that COVID has just blown up expenses all over the place. Lots of areas that we didn't think about. We would need, all the extra sanitation, all of the extra hand sanitizer. I mean, there's just so much that goes into maintaining our students that they're safe and our staff that are safe. We've bought masks. We've done all of these things. So that will push up the expenses a little bit. I have budgeted aggressively in revenue this year to better reflect what we have actually received over the last 3 years. Didn't hold back as much as I typically do on tax revenue. Feel pretty confident about it. We have some new funding this year that's not really our funding. The National Board Certified Teachers every year, the state used to give our teachers the money directly from the state to them. They decided last year that they're going to flow it through the school districts and we're going to distribute it to them. So that's a new revenue source, but it evens out with the expenses. Same thing, there is a quote bonus, and they're running that through us this year. There is also our special education pre-K students that are co-op services for us. The state has always given them the money directly, and they decided this year we were going to give the money to them. So they're running the money through us. The co-op bills us and we pay them. And I'm not sure why they decided to do that, but so you will see some new things on your revenue side of your board report. So jumping in, let's look at the second page, the revenue page. Let's just talk about it a little bit. We get revenue from 3 different sources. We get it from local revenue, we get state revenue, and we get a little bit of federal revenue for this budget that we're looking at. And if you look at the chart that I have up on the screen, you will see, and it's hard for you guys to read these numbers, but we get 42% of our revenue comes from our taxes. That's basically what that is. Property taxes fund 42% of our district. The monies that we get from the state comprise 57%, and the little bit of federal money that we get is less than 1%. And that's for the part that we get a forest reserve. We get a little bit of money because part of our school district extends into the national forest, and so we get just a little bit of money for that to spend in the district. Remember that with our tax dollars, we see the bulk of this money is given to us in October and November, and then we see another huge dump in April and May. It's pretty thin, it trickles in before, I mean, taxes are really due in October, but people pay them late and we get them in November, and then people forget that they're due in October, so when they have to assess in April and May, they just go ahead and pay them. So as soon as the county gets the money, we get the money that month too. So it's all in the timing of when somebody decides to pay their taxes. When we break down our local revenue, just that top section of local revenue, 92.4% of that is our tax dollars, or is all of our tax dollars. We get, the next big category we get is delinquent. Those are people who pay taxes late. The next little bit is called excess commissions, and it's 3.4%. And that's where the county treasurer holds back money every year to cover the expenses in their office. And at the end of the year, whatever's left over gets paid back out to the schools. They have to cover their expenses first for managing our money, and then they pay out what they don't use. So that money can fluctuate quite a bit every year. Land redemption is less than 1%, and that's delinquent tax land that's so delinquent that, you know, it goes back to the state and they sell it, and then the property taxes are paid when they sell the delinquent land. Interest is also less than 1%, and that's simply interest we receive off of the cash balances in the bank. So as we get on down and we look and analyze our state revenue a little bit deeper, we get what we call foundation funding, state foundation funding. And that makes up 94.8% of all of our state funding, followed by our ABC money, which is our pre-K funding. Then the next big category of money we get is special education at 1.8. Do you have any questions about the revenue?
ABC grant, did you say, what is that?
That's our pre-K. That's our 140 seats we have in our pre-K program.
Where does that come from? Is that state or is that federal?
It's state.
State?
When you look at our foundation funding, you will notice that we got an increase this year, so we will get an increase of $685,792. So that's really exciting to see that. Do you have any questions? If not, we can move on to the next section, which is teacher salary. And our fun fact number 2 is that we have 350 certified positions in our district. This is the fund that pays their salary. It doesn't pay mine because I'm not certified to teach. So my salary comes out of the operating fund. This also does not include any benefits. So our part of their health insurance that we pay, part of the income taxes that we pay, that is all picks up in the operating fund. This is simply what their salary is. And our salaries are up, but remember, we added $1,250 to the base of our teacher salary last year. So that's a big increase. It was 3.125%. You will notice the actual expenses for 2019-20 as compared to the years before were down. And that's mainly because we weren't here, we weren't in the buildings the last 3 months of school. So we didn't have additional duty to pay, and we certainly didn't have any substitute teachers. So that is part of the cause of why last year's looks like we didn't pay as much, but we did. We just didn't have substitute teachers. Do you all have any questions? Cool. Let's go on up to fun fact number 3 in our operating fund expenditures. Fun fact, salaries and benefits make up 72.5% of our entire budget. So you think about that and you go, wow. So how do you figure out how much money goes to what? So this is how I approach budgeting for our school district. I make sure everybody gets paid and everybody that wants and needs health insurance has it. Then I worry about making our debt payment. And right now our debt payment is 7.36% of our entire budget. It's a little over $3 million. The next thing I make sure that we have enough money for is utilities. We want to be sure we have lights and heat and water. That's very important. And then finally, there's everything else. So out of the $39 million budget, there's a little over $6.5 million to spread out among everything else. And when I say everything else, I'm talking buses, I'm talking fuel for the buses. We need technology. We need textbooks. We need to maintain our buildings. Classrooms need supplies. We provide health services. We need books in our library. We need to fund our special education classrooms with monies above what the state provides to us. So it's that part of the budget that everybody fights for every year, because everybody needs things. So that's the part, this little part of the budget is the part that I spend the most time on, is trying to balance out priorities on, who should come first and things like that. Sometimes it gets a little difficult, and that's okay.
Does that change yearly? Like on that number 4, everything else?
No,
Your
everything
pecking
else.
order for that, I assume you've got to break that down a little bit, right?
Okay, everything else. So everybody brings me 75 budgets. So the buildings, each building tells me what their needs are. Maintenance brings me theirs, and they say what needs they have. Technology talks to me. Everyone talks to me. And I sit down and I try to prioritize. I work with Jody, work with Shane, work with Amy. We work very closely together to figure out, is this in line with what we are doing this year? And that's how that happens.
And we moved last year, some of those everything else budgets, we moved to a per student based budget, so that we're trying to allocate a specific amount in some of those budgets based on the number of students in that building and that program, so that we're consistent across the years, so it's not kind of helter-skelter from one year to the next. I have a question here.
Okay,
I should have asked this before.
that's okay.
Your 72.5% benefits, salary and benefits, does that include our classified salaries as well?
Yes, it does.
That's all salaries, all benefits?
That's not all salaries. That's all classified salaries and every employee's benefits.
All certified salaries?
In the operating fund or the teacher salary fund?
In the 72.5%?
Oh, that's, okay, I'm sorry, I was not tracking with you. It is all the salaries in the operating fund. Okay, let me look at, I don't have an answer for that, Jody.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm pretty sure it's all salary stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, so things that increased this year that I could not help. Our portion of the health insurance that we pay per employee per month is increasing approximately $3 per person in January. Because we added 3% to the base of our teacher salary, I also had to increase our contribution by 3%. That's a law that went into effect a few years ago. So we are paying more for health insurance per person. We had a quarter increase in our portion of the retirement that goes to the state, Arkansas teacher retirement. So it went from 4.25 to 14.5%. So I can't really change that. We had a very large increase in curriculum this year. We adopted lots of new curriculum, which was much needed. That happens, that kind of goes in a wave. Some years are low and some years are high, and this year is high, and that's okay. I mentioned the cost of the personal protection equipment and sanitation costs of COVID. This year we bought 2 buses that weren't in the bus budget last year. And again, I talked about the pass-through for our co-op for the special education pre-K kids. This is just a pie chart to show you what it looks like. The orange is the everything else. I know you guys can't see that. The green is the salaries, the red is the benefits, debt is yellow, and utilities are blue. Do you have any questions?
Just a question about scholarship. I notice it's zeroed out this year.
Okay. We still have the scholarship program. What happened is the way that we have always coded it in its own section, the state said we couldn't do that anymore. So if you will notice, the superintendent's budget looks like it went up a bunch. That's where the scholarship is now. It now falls under the superintendent office umbrella instead of the counseling umbrella where it used to be. Great question. Because I freaked out about that a little bit too when I was doing it. I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? Moving on to our debt service fund. In order to refinance a bond, a school district must save at least 5% net or $100,000, whichever is smaller. That's just one of those things. It doesn't happen. You don't get a chance to refinance very often. As you all know, we refinanced last year, and it was very profitable for us, which was very exciting. We saved approximately $2.1 million on a bond refinance last year. So that was pretty exciting. This year, if you look at our bond payments, and our budget looks similar to last year, but if you look at what we actually spent on debt service last year, it's way down. But we're back up to a regular bond payment this year. Any questions about that? Fun fact number 6. Arkansas school districts have 4 funding sources that are listed as categorical. And these funds are magical. They are our alternative learning environment fund, our English language learner fund, enhanced student achievement, also formerly known as NSLA, that's what most of us still call it, and professional development. What is so amazing about these funds is that these are some of the few restricted funds that we have. They are restricted based on the program. They allot different amounts of money based on, like, our enhanced student achievement is based on our free and reduced lunch counts. Our funding for that. They provide extra, help me, if you supplant, not supplement, or is it back? Do I have that one backwards?
Supplemental.
Supplemental, yeah. So while we have these programs and we provide for them in our regular budget, these budgets give us that extra money to help service some children that need extra services, which is awesome. Our alternative learning environment
Is this state money or federal?
This is state money.
State.
The only federal money that we get in this budget is the money from the forest reserve. Everything else is state or local in this budget.
The federal dollars that Shane manages are not included in our.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not
that's
included in
what I
this
was-
one.
okay, That's
Yeah.
where I was going.
Yeah. Thank you. Alternative learning is an intervention program that seeks to eliminate traditional barriers to student learning. English Language Learner Funds is a program that provides funding for students that have been identified through approved English proficiency assessments administered annually as being not proficient in the English language. Enhanced Student Achievement provides funding to districts to improve instructional programs and student achievement for at-risk students. And professional development is just what it's called. It's professional development dollars to help our teachers continue to do better in the classrooms and learn new techniques for teaching.
On that one, looks like 2 years ago, there was a decent bump over years past, and then this year again, decent, 8,000, whatever bump. Do we see that trend continuing? Is that?
It depends on who's in office and what, how they want to allocate money to education. It usually goes, 1 year it went down really bad, and we're just now starting to climb back up from where we were several years ago. This year, I think we're getting $36 as compared to $32 last year, $33. So it's starting to go back up.
And is this a professional development? Is that something that's required? Do we require our teachers, or is it more up to them? Because I don't think, even in my world, there's not as much as.
It's both. The state requires a certain number of hours for our teachers. It used to be 60 hours, now it's 36.
Yeah.
36 hours that are required. We outline specifically what a lot of those are, but then there's some flexibility as well for teachers. And if this budget went back years prior to 17-18, we actually used to get more than this. And at some point, several years ago, a law was passed that part of our money from PD would be given to AETN each year, Arkansas Education Television Network, for them to develop professional development online resources for us. And so we went way down, and we were actually starting to build back, and each year in the legislative session, or every other year, they determine what they're going to give us per student. And this last session, that increased, that's why it's on.
So this is all the summer meetings or the different times that they.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess I'm thinking more, maybe it's the staff training or individual training that teachers that want to kind of improve, or do we have opportunities to attend conferences or?
Oh, yes,
But there's any going out, but-
this fund helps support that
Okay,
also.
so that's included in this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Great questions. Anything else?
I'm just curious, we've almost doubled the expenditures this year, or at least 100,000 more.
We were fortunate last year to not have to abide by the carryover rules from the previous year. And so when school was out, all of those summer conferences and all of those things where our teachers were normally traveling and going to the co-op and all that stuff got canceled. And so we had, amazingly, we had quite a bit of money that we were able to carry forward this year. I don't see them waiving those percentage carryovers this year, but they were kind enough to do that for all the categorical funds last year.
And Connie, for all the categoricals, we are required to budget, show that we are going to expend every penny we get each year. It won't accept it unless we budget it all. And currently, we are not going to very much professional development.
Right, that's what I wondered.
We haven't since.
What $100,000 was doing, for this year, so.
So we have the opportunity to transfer that money in between categorical funds, and that may be something we need to look at mid-year to see if we could move that to ALE or to ESA or something else, where it might be better used.
Fun fact number 7, there's a typo on your building budget sheet. If you look in the blue column on your budget sheet, it says the 1920 budget, should say the 2020-21 budget. So I found that yesterday when I was finishing up the presentation. Plus, the building funds, not that much fun to talk about. So this year, We are still receiving, when we did our pledges for the advertising on our football stadium, we are still receiving inflows of cash from that. This year, we're looking to get about $50,000, but we're not looking to get any other monies this year. You will notice in the past that we have transferred a lot of money. Last year was amazing because we had the $2.1 million from the bond refunding. And then with us being out of school for the biggest part of the last quarter of the school year, we had all of those expenditures that we were able to move into the building fund. And we currently have 3 projects that we are focusing on. Our bus fuel pumps need to be replaced, updated. I don't know how to better describe that. They needed repair a month or so ago, and finding parts just to get them repaired took several weeks. So that is a project that we certainly need to look at a little deeper. We've allocated money to athletic facilities and to an administration building. We are putting those projects on hold right now until we can see how this year ends. Our attendance and school attendance, kids coming back and forth to school will make a big difference on our funding for 21-22. And right now, we're not real sure about it with the legislative session coming up. If they're going to hold us harmless this year for lost students, they haven't really said. So we have chosen to put these projects on hold. And if we need to, we can move this money back into the operating budget if we need to. So that used to be taboo. It's not anymore. But since we had already moved it, we wanted to be sure we had it allocated to projects. Any questions about that?
So when did that change from building fund that you could?
It changed about 2 or 3 years ago when they started making us worry about what our carryover. Remember when we had to start spending that
Right.
not hush money, but all of that extra money, that nest egg money that we were sitting on? They said the only way that you can, if you can't spend it, you've got to move it into your building fund. And everybody groaned, and they were like, but if you move it in your building fund, we'll let you, you have to come before the board, and the board has to approve it to go back into the operating fund if you need it to pay salaries or whatever. So that happened 3 years ago, probably. Do you have any more questions? Just in closing, I want to thank everybody who turns in a budget and works with me on the budget, because I'm not a very nice person during the 2 weeks that I work on this all the time. I'm cranky. As Jody mentioned earlier, we do have other funds outside of this budget. Mr. Shane Patrick handles a lot of those funds, and those are our title funds, migrant funds, Carl Perkins, Medicaid, RMAC. So, and even looking at, yes, I predicted this huge deficit, but with the balance that we would have even at the end of this deficit, we could still continue running our school district for 2.5 months, even if we didn't receive any money for 2.5 months. So I feel pretty good about that. Do you have any more questions? Yes, sir.
Could you kind of go over, you kind of touched on it, but so the budget process, every building and every department and everything comes up with their number and gets it to you, and then you look at it and then collectively have back and forth. So you ever send them back? Let's say the high school. So high school submits their budget, so this ain't gonna work, try again?
Yes, we do.
Good.
We do. Our maintenance department gets that pretty much every year. No, this is not in line, and we look for trends. Is this in line with what we have done in the past? And if it's out of line, do we have something extraordinary this year to make it so? We're not so fussy that we don't allow people to, buy outside of the norm. Like one year, we helped our band department buy new instruments, new baritones or trombone, and they're expensive. But he doesn't ask for those every year. The years that we have to buy uniforms for our choir and our band, those are outside of the norm. And so, yes, we do allow for that, but we really do a lot of analysis, linear analysis on everything, going, is this in line? Is this what I expected this to look like? And if it's out of line, then we start asking a lot of questions.
Do you have buses in the budget this year?
Yes, sir.
And where were they? Are they
They're in the
listed?
transportation line on the operating expenses. I finished if you guys are.
Okay, so she should send you all this, which is actually line by line budget. Y'all have any questions over the formatting of it, what it looks like, anything?
So we're gonna need a motion to adopt.
Motion to approve 2021 budget. As put forth.
Any other questions? Now's the time. We good? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? There's your budget, Terry.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for your work.
Yes.
Thank you. I actually enjoy it. I know I'm not the most pleasant person to be around during budget season, but I actually really like it.
All right, so that concludes all of our, do you have any other business you need to go over with us at this time? No? So a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Good.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Now.